Here's my take on Game 11 of the World Championship match between Magnus Carlsen, World Champion, and the challenger Fabiano Caruana. Magnus with white. 2 games to go. 2 classical games to go. And Magnus chose to play e4 and take on the Petrov. Now, what line did he select? Well, he's gone for this quite trendy knight c3, which basically leads to a position where white has greater piece activity than black's, but black has no real weaknesses. And, well, if things calm down, if black can neutralize this piece activity, then he'll have no difficulties because there are no real weaknesses in black's pawn structure. Now here's a funny situation. So we've got kings on opposite sides of the board. This is a very well-known position. And Caruana has had this position twice this year against Ray Robson in St. Louis in the I think in the US Championship. And he also had it in the recent Batumi Olympiad against Aronian. And on both occasions, Caruana went for c6 and got a reasonable position in both games. But in this game, Caruana went for knight f6, which is less popular, but has been played by some decent players. Funnily enough, Caruana actually had this with white against Ho Yifan, who is a real specialist in the Petrov as well. Also, in that accidentally posted video from the St. Louis Chess Club, where it had the screenshot of files that supposedly Caruana's team were looking at, we haven't had that confirmed or denied. Knight f6 was actually one of the variations that was mentioned as a header on one of those files. I think what I'm saying is not just the evidence from that, but actually all the games that Caruana has played with this line might suggest that this is a variation that he certainly could play. Not just c6, but knight f6 as well. So against Yifan, Caruana played h3. Certainly not a bad move, although he struggled in that game. But Carlsen went for bishop d3. And then c5. So this is quite a committal move, of course, because the pawn on d6 is now backward. The advantage of playing c5 is that it takes away the d4 square from white from a minor piece, and also potentially sends the queen out here, and you never know, maybe playing b5 at some stage, but also d5 is in the air too. Rook e1. Nevertheless, you can see that white has a very nice lead in development here, and this is typical for this line. That you can see this bishop here, not a lot of scope, but these pieces have very good scope in this position, and of course white's rook's already in the center. So normally one would say, well, just very comfortable position for white. Now this position has been reached before in a few games. Bishop d7 played previously in one game, but that certainly gave white a nice initiative on the king side. You can see how white has these open lines that allows the queen to transfer. Bishop e6 certainly looks normal. It's a nice chunky square for the bishop. We like that. Protected by the pawn. And this has been reached in a few games. Game between Karyakin and Hari Krishna went bishop g5 from Karyakin, and then h6, and that was already fatal. Karyakin won a nice game. Curiously enough, Sergei Karyakin actually made the first move on the board, the ceremonial first move on the board for game 11. So he was there in the audience watching this game. But after bishop g5, of course, h6 is not necessary. And, for example, Harika against Kostyuk, Hanty-Mansiysk 2017 went d5, and that's actually okay for black. And there's a game between Giri and Motilev, which went queen a5, which is also satisfactory. So Magnus did not play bishop g5, but instead he played king b1 after some thought, which kind of surprised me, considering, as I said before, this variation has been played with both colours by Caruana. And now queen a5, threatening a check here. Now if a3, this would allow black to take the initiative like this. Knight e4 followed by d5, and this is already a little bit unpleasant for white. You can see there's potential for sacrifices here. So Carlsen wasn't really going to get involved with any of that at all and simply played c4 and a queen exchange and h6, very sensible to prevent this knight coming to g5. And here is where Magnus had a think, another big think actually. Again, I just found this really surprising that Caruana seemed to be very familiar with this position. But Carlsen, you know, you could say this is, well, not exactly a must-win game, but last chance with the white pieces in the 12 classical games. So you'd think he has to really go for it. And here, h3 looks pretty normal to prevent a piece coming to g4 and perhaps to play g4. And on a good day, you might be able to open things up. In fact, black does seem pretty solid in this position. G5 doesn't really get very far. For example, here, and the bishop comes round. Potentially here, black is absolutely fine. Bishop c3 also possible. But, I mean, both these moves, h3 and bishop c3, they do keep more tension. White doesn't have to launch forward all the way with the g-pawn. It can just rest on g4. So this is a playable position for white. And, well, I think it's possible to say that white is more comfortable, but certainly no advantage. But Carlsen played knight h4, so he's kind of pushing things straight away. But I have to say Caruana reacted so calmly here with rook e8. Knight g6. Now, not here, and rook takes, but knight g4. So it looked as though white was going to get the two bishops. Does for a moment, but basically knight g4 just creates enough disturbance in white's camp to level matters. So Carlsen exchanged off, rook e2. Now if white could keep those two bishops, that would be very fine, but knight e5 threatens the pawn, threatens to take the bishop, and black is absolutely fine here. And we got a position with opposite colour bishops again. The fact that this pawn can be taken is neither here nor there. Caruana just needs to be a little bit careful in this endgame because his queenside pawns are all on dart squares. I mean, Carlsen had nothing better than to go in for this. So opposite colour bishops, even pawns, but there is at least a threat to play like this. But Caruana just played a6. Now watch out because this pawn could be taken. So Carlsen just puts it there. But Caruana makes a very sensible decision simply to give up one of the queenside pawns, and that allows him to bring his king into the centre and also stabilise his kingside pawns as well. And white is not going to win this. Of course, Magnus tried. But there's really no way through. I'll get to the one tricky moment in the game fairly quickly. Let me just zip through these moves. So at least Carlsen has created a passed pawn, which sort of ties the king or bishop to blockading. But you can see there are no weaknesses here. But Carlsen had one last trick. This is worth watching. This is quite nice. So the bishop's still defending the pawns. Now, let's get to the position. Time to advance the pawns on the king side. Magnus repeats. And finally takes the plunge. So this is White's only try. Of course, if this is taken, then just blockading that pawn and that one can't be prevented from going through to the queening square because the bishop can't come back. But here is the trick. After f5, black has to play bishop b1. Only move, but quite good enough. If king takes pawn, then bishop takes pawn. And otherwise, well, no real tricks here. Of course, pawn takes pawn can be met just by pawn takes. And that one doesn't go through at all. There's no way to shift the blockade here. So Carlsen tried one last little trick. He simply waited. He played bishop f2, hoping for bishop takes pawn. And then h5 with the idea of pushing. So pawn takes, king takes, and White would win that one. But Carlsen waited, so Caruana also waited. Bishop c2, and here they agreed a draw. There is nothing for White to do here, so let me see. Sorry, I'm messing up again. King takes pawn, bishop takes pawn. It's the same as before. There is absolutely no way through. Pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn. It's just a stone cold draw. So this, to me, was a really perplexing game, and I think certainly this is the most disappointing of all the games we've had in the World Championship so far. Yes, we've had all draws, but actually the chess has been really hard fought. But this was odd, because I think this whole variation was predictable. And yet Carlsen really didn't come up with anything that challenged Caruana at all, and went into this endgame after knight h4. And I asked Carlsen afterwards whether he'd miscalculated something, whether he foresaw this endgame. He said, yeah, with knight h4, he foresaw this opposite colour bishop's endgame. But where he said, well, you know, I have a little advantage, I can try and press. Well, that's true. But it didn't set too many problems to Caruana. There have been far more difficult endgames in this match so far. So, very surprising that he was somehow caught out in this variation. Carlsen also said, well, Fabiano was playing very quickly, and, well, he obviously felt a little bit caught. But again, like I said, really curious. One has to ask questions about the depth of Carlsen's preparation. Now, well, not just the depth, his choice of opening variation, very simply, as he got really nothing out of this opening. So, one game to go, and I have to say, Carlsen doesn't look very comfortable in the press conferences afterwards, whereas Fabiano is really very cool indeed. So let's see if that has a bearing on the final game. One more classical game. Can Fabiano Caruana use the white pieces to press Magnus Carlsen, can he decide the championship in game 12? Or, well, who knows? Will it rebound? Will Magnus win? Or will it go to a tiebreak? Is that what Magnus is now hoping for? I'm sure he is after this game anyway. Thanks very much for watching. Remember, if you're not a subscriber, click that button down there, free to subscribe. And if you want to support the channel, we'd be really grateful. Do click on one of the PayPal buttons up there. And also do check out patreon.com/PowerPlayChess. Again, you'll see the link up there if you want to support us and enjoy the rewards. Thanks very much for watching.